I intend to wrap it up, and I'm sure that you can, on your own time, look up Kumarbi, Inanna, Nanna, Utu, the Akkadian period, the Mesopotamian deities as well, the pantheon of seven, and so on, and kind of see why I'm right and see how it connects to Egypt and do the wordplay that I have taught you. I don't feel the need to guide you through that at this point. A key deity in all of this is Ki, the earth goddess of Sumer. I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talk about the Anunnaki in a way that has to do with aliens. When you really think about it, it's really a play on words. They're not talking about little green men, but talking about people who are strange to other people, as if they're from another world. And this has everything to do with stages of mind, states of mind, levels of consciousness, levels of awareness, and beliefs and perspectives. Ki was the consort of An, the sky god. In some versions, it's Uras, and I don't think that that is a coincidence. And there's a connection here to Ra and Raz and Rise and Rastafari and so on. Okay, and so Ra and so on. So when we look at this thing, we see the offspring of Anshar, the sky pivot, okay, and Kishar, the earth pivot, early personifications of heaven and earth. And those of you who play basketball, male and female alike, I'm sure you understand what a pivot is. Now think about how it relates to martial arts and sort of half pivots that have to do with creating the torque that helps create the force when you look at it scientifically from the Ki perspective. And yes, Ki, the earth goddess, has everything to do with Qui, Qi, Chi, and Ki. This is Ki in this. I've been describing it this way for quite some time. The difference between Ki and Ka before I really focused on this goddess as such. Okay, this isn't just proving me correct in terms of Ka being the true spirit that has been redefined by those that follow the earth and are concerned only with control of the earth. Okay, and Ki, which I talked about in terms of martial arts and has everything to do with the uniform I'm wearing. Again, I do not do Kung Fu. I did it at a point a long time ago. I did Shaolin Kung Fu and touched on a few techniques of Hungar and so on. Okay, but that is not my style. In the absence, the disgraceful absence of a martial art system that reflects my views, even though I see my people as really the progenitors of martial arts, or at least the continuity of the main martial artists, Kuro Obi, black belt, the sign of rank. It also has everything to do with carrying a baby and carrying things from one generation to another, gathering and carrying, marshaling, ordering, arranging, the A range, the mountain range, and there are many mountains that have a lot to do with this. When you look at the connection between the Amorites, the Mesopotamians, and the Bible, we have several key mountains, okay, Mount Zion and what have you, okay. So basically, by Anu, Ki gave birth to the Anunnaki. These are not aliens. These actually refer to people. People, these are ideas that people personify and represent, and they are the beginning of, and eventually people are seen as the greatest embodiment of. Okay, the most prominent of these people was, these Anunnaki, as they're referred to, was Enlil. Okay, On-le-el. On, in lie, El, right? In lying, this person is the deity, right? This is one of the kind of more, not necessarily the earliest, as Anu, I believe himself, is an early example of lying, okay? This is people trying to take on the martial arts kind of structure. So if you look at this thing, right, the map, you kind of have on one side, you have the Middle East and Mesopotamia. These are people who aren't as great warriors as the Africans who migrated into the Middle East, and that it became the kind of governing class. And eventually the Akkadians and other groups of people who are to some degree related to these people would start to rise up. And Sargon has said to have told his people to rule over the black-headed people in the area. These are the Africans that have migrated there and used their martial art prowess to take over. However, at this point, Haru, the elder is not defined. There are falcon tribes that for a long time have dominated Egypt, okay? And certainly you see around this time this kind of merger starting to occur. And after the smoke clears with the falcon tribes fighting with each other, we see that one of them is allowed to call themselves Horus, and then they take over the followers of Wer and the Nechanite. Okay, so Nechan and the Nechanite and Wer are taken over by the followers of Horus, who become Horus the Elder, the patron of Nechan. Okay, Har-Wer, Har-O Ares, because this has everything to do with Ari. It has everything to do with the Igbo Uku Empire, the sub-Saharan layer of the leopard. So these people can be seen as merging from sub-Saharan Africa. Perhaps there were falcon tribes from somewhere else, but they weren't the ones that dominated the scene. These were the true son of Ra, the true martial art lord. Those who inherit the power. And in Anu, you have, I believe, Anutu, right, of the Anunnaki. Some of them are said to be inheriting the powers of An or Anu. And of course, in Igbo culture, you have Anna, Earth Mother. So instead of Ki, it is Anna. So Anna can be seen as a kind of female trickery that is emphasized in the Igbo culture. Okay, where these guys who, not in the true spirit of masculinity, have exerted dominance over the people around there. That's the most logical interpretation of what went on, and the resulting chain of events that would occur. Okay, so again, Ki is the consort, right? The earth goddess of Anu, who can be seen as an Ebert, who is trying to understand the motion, the movement of the martial artist in order to legitimize his claim. And in terms, he is said to be the child of Alulu, okay, which is where you get Allah, Allah Lo, Allah Lai, Allah Lay, all A. Right? So it is the difference between only the true martial art heirs can be in charge, which goes back to Har, Where, Heir, War, Her War. What is it a war of? Of who gets to determine in the minds of women especially the ideal martial artist. Okay. So Enlil is said to have cleaved heaven and earth in two, and An carried away heaven. This story is very similar to the story of Jeb, Nut, Tefnut, and Shu. And Shu, again, can be seen as very similar to Anu in a sense that this person was aware of the martial arts system, okay? And so, you know, I'm not quite sure that we can substitute Shu for An directly, but it is very similar to somebody who has no business in asserting authority in this particular way. As far as being seen as the Lord of the land, yes. As far as filling a martial art position that should only be for the top martial artist tribe and technique that really should rule the world, no. This is a very definitive example of them seeking to define the divine, okay, the divine order. They had no business in doing it, and I therefore consider An a usurper. So Ki, in company with Enlil, took the earth. So the child of a usurper, in company with the earth goddess, took the earth. And of course, we see in this thing, they talk about the breasts of Antu being the clouds that milk the earth and make the land fertile. And of course, this evolves into the land itself, which also goes back to the Min and Hades and Pluto, the riches of the earth, which include the grain, which is seen to grow from the earth, the underworld of the earth. So planting the seed in the underworld for the grain to grow versus a true sky god, falcon, son of Ra, son of the sun, making things, making the order in the true spirit of God. Okay, but this is where we see this sort of, really it can be described as a mage versus a martial art disagreement. I wouldn't consider this an authentic martial art disagreement because these people are liars using treachery and trickery and poisoning and all kinds of underhanded techniques to legitimize themselves, and not natural martial arts combat, which should be at the highest level performed in a sparring match between the heads of the societies, and not a bloodbath kind of free-for-all by any means necessary, might versus equals right in forms of in the form of brute force, which is Set's perspective. And of course, that goes back to the story of Kumarbi, okay, and how he takes on the storm god and cuts off his genitals, which is paralleled in the story of the followers of Horus castrating and beheading the followers of Set to unite the land in Egypt in 3200 BC. So what we see is Ki is questioned as a deity by scholars. They say there's no definitive reference that this is actually a deity. It could very well refer to women who are subservient to men themselves. There's a little problem with that interpretation, as Inanna is seen as a child, as one of the Anunnaki. However, okay, this occurs after, Ki and Anu are already in power. So this could be further the direction going more toward the world, since Anna is Earth Mother. Okay, Ki is Earth Goddess. And in Egypt, you have a kind of shameful role reversal. Remember Saturn and Kronos role reversal. Okay, where Jeb is seen as the Earth, and Tefnut and Nut are seen as the sky, and Shu is seen as the atmosphere, and at some points he takes on the characteristics of a light, a deity of light as well. So there's no evidence of a cult, and name appears only in unlimited numbers of texts, so Ki is drawn into question. Okay, remember, Ka is not only the spirit. Okay, we have other definitions which are similar to mine and don't really contradict mine, but when taken in a different direction, become a demonic variation. Ka as the spirit, as the life force, as the protective genius, right? The God coming into somebody so they can outmaneuver someone else in martial arts. Only in the terms of martial arts can this thing truly be applied. Everything else by default is trickery and treachery. And we also see, that these things also refer to the sky and the northern hemisphere, the different sky ideas, okay, which are interesting. Astrology, theology, astrotheology, astral projection, okay, meditation, premeditation. These things are all connected for this reason, and yes, they are trickery, and it's premeditated trickery when it's accompanied with meditation and deep thought. I'm sure we can all agree on that. So again, Ka is spirit, life force, protective genius, transcendent part of a man that rose up after his last breath to meet his double, his heavenly Ka, okay. And certainly this is emphasized in later explanations. But I pretty much agree, except for I'm not quite sure that there's a heavenly Ka, but you go back to the Creator is the way I interpret it. And I don't see any reason to believe that there is a heavenly double, but rather just the Creator himself. And perhaps this is a metaphor for you, that part of you being mirrored in the Creator. It's a part of the Creator that is receptive to the Creator, your soul, if you will, in a sense. But again, Ba is the soul and Ka is the spirit. I will go as far as say Ka generates the soul. Ka is really the foundation of the soul, what it can be taken away if you do not reproduce in the divine order, which is where we are today. So now let me go through this part. All this stuff is key as well. The Anunnaki in turn bore the Nephilim in some variations of the story. It says everything to do with why cops have taken away my sharp weapons. Hand, handsome, right? DNA, it's a play on words. Hand backwards, H is a fence. This leads us to the fireplace for burning or threshing. Okay? And that goes back to Ki. Right? What is Ki, right? We have Ki from G, gunny, right? Hearth, okay? A fireplace to burn things or thresh things, okay? We also have Karas as, we have the threshing floor. Hearth is the floor of a fireplace or a floor in front of it, okay? A hard surface on which grain is threshed with a flail is also a part of this. The threshing floor, okay? So or steeth. So the hearth, is the fireplace floor or the floor in front of it. This has everything to do with what tares are thrown in the fire and what grain is kept, which is what the Bible is talking about, okay? And this also goes back to G, Ki, and Ki. There's an E, which is the sign for earth, which is the key. It's like is an E with 4 lines instead of 3 inside of what looks like a baseball diamond. So this also goes back to Kara, which is for karate, which is empty hand and so on, encampment or army. Okay, Kisla, threshing floor, Steef, Sur 7, Ki, Gag, and so on and so forth. It also has to go do with the saying, beat the flying fuck out of you. Okay, so kara, to empty, kara as encampment.